Hi team, I was working with a customer on the Selenium grid, and I thought I would take a few moments to capture what we did to get that working and share that. I'll keep this as generic as possible, so if you want to share with customers, that'd be an option too. iTest supports Selenium Grid. If you want to run your test cases against different operating systems or different browsers for backward compatibility testing, you've got that option. In this case, customer the customer wanted to run a test case on a remote machine. So he was using Grid to run a suite of tests on a remote machine, which completely valid scenario. So let's talk about Selenium Grid. And if you go take a look at Selenium Grid, we actually had some old documentation on that. Yeah, it's been out since 2015. Of course, the Selenium organization updates their information. They put out their new binaries, new hooks, and stuff for Selenium Grid. So this was a little bit dated, and the customer was trying to work with this. So I said, hey, well, let's go take a look at let's go take a look at the system and see where we're at now. So the first thing I did was I went into the deployment guide and took a look at, here's the Selenium version they're using, 253, and went out to on the web and found the I went out to the web, found this interesting site on GitHub. It's a wiki on Grid, and in that wiki, it had a link to the different builds here. And you can see there's a 253, and there's this 2531 jar, which is Selenium Server Standalone. I went ahead and downloaded that. The other thing you need to download too is the Chrome driver. In order for the grid to work with Chrome, you have to have the Chrome driver, and you have to add the path. And so what I did, I downloaded these to the download directory. I probably should put these under root, under like Selenium driver, so it's more permanent. But then I added this path, so that was some of the prerequisites before I got started. Right, get that get that complete. And if you go on the wiki right here, the server process is pretty simple. It's you're going to start up the hub, and then you're going to start up the node. So you can have one hub, and it can be running on any machine, and then you got many nodes, and the nodes are the different. It could be on Windows, Linux, and they could support different browsers for your environment. So let me go ahead and start that process up. So right here, I'm going to start up the hub. And as the hub starts, one of the things you'll notice on the hub right here is I've got this local host on the grid. Once this comes up, we should be able to, you got a little web service running. You should be able to pop up your hub, and it will show no nodes are attached. So we'll give that a second. Now, one other thing while this is going, I'm just going to share this with you. There's probably a graceful way of killing this. This runs it as a background process. If I go into Task Manager, I look at my processes, I notice that this is running as a Java process, and we'll see a new one pop up here, Java AW. That's the image, and so I've been killing it that way. It's probably there's one right. That's the node, and or that's the hub. And now let's run the node. Let's just make sure our hub's up. Yep, so you can see our hub's up, and there's nothing there. There's no nodes registered. So let's register a node. And we're going to go back to that task manager right there, and you'll see another Java aw.exe. Like I said, there's probably a graceful way of killing that. So when you're done with that, I've just been killing the process manually. Just want to point that out. So we got our node, we got our hub. So let's confirm our node's running. Yep, we got one node registered. You can have several of these nodes running. And so we go into iTest now. And in iTest, we have this session profile. And my session profile, I enabled grid. I point it to the hub. Now remember, it's on my local host. I would put the IP address on there. If the hub is running on a different machine, I put the IP address in there. And likewise, when I started this node up, you'd want to put the IP address of the hub right there. So there is no requirement that it has to be on the same machine. You just have to fill out that information correctly. So when I go run my test case, now here's a tip. A lot of customers like to run their big production test case, and I run what we call a little baby test case on here. So I went into Google, looked up Spirent, did a search on Spirent, and then I'm checking the logo. I'm doing a describe on the logo. Well, when folks are testing this stuff out and they're checking out the process, don't run your 600 line test script against it. Do a 4 or 5 line test script just to make sure that it works, and then go run your production test case. So it saves a lot of time and it's pretty efficient. So I'm going to run this. I'm going to run this against the hub right here, and it's going to open up Chrome. It's going to search for Spirent, and then I'm doing a describe on that logo, that Spirent logo, up on the top left-hand side. Okay, pretty simple. Let's go ahead and change that. I want to run that same test. I want to run that same test on the hub. So I'm going to my session profile. You could do this in your topology as well. And if we look at that, it supports Chrome, Firefox, and Internet Explorer. I was not able to get Internet Explorer working, probably just my environment on that one. But Firefox, we're going to enter it just like it's listed right here. So I'm going to pay attention to case and all that stuff and spaces. I'm going to hit save. I save that in my session profile. Go back to hub, or run my test. So it's going to run on the hub here, and it's saying it's using the grid Firefox browser on Windows platform. So it found those requirements, and it's going to run it against my Firefox application. For people that test with Selenium, Firefox replays a little bit slower than Chrome. Chrome plays a little bit faster. Of course, you have to record on Firefox, but you can see how easy it is to switch this and say, hey, go run it on against the this particular browser. And there's even granularity in there to run it against certain browser versions. So if you need to do that, you have that ability. The normal use case on Grid is that I've got a bunch of servers or a bunch of clients set up, however you want to call them, that Windows, Linux, they may have different flavors of Chrome and Firefox and IE, and you want to make sure your application's backwards compatible and runs against different flavors of browsers. Well, in this case, the customer had a use case where they just needed to run some test cases on the remote machine. Of course, this guy's being a little bit flaky. It tried to load up the Skype here. For some reason, it keeps going to that one. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this one time. Let me try and run it one more time. Some reason in Firefox, I haven't been able to figure this out. I've got Skype loaded on my system, and it wants to go to Skype first, and that causes a little bit of a delay. Let's try that one more time. So I'm going to run this. It's going to launch against Firefox, and I think I don't know why it goes to that ghostskype.com, but it takes a second for that to load, and it's causing a little bit of delay. Now it's going to go to Spirent, and then it's going to check the logo. So once I figure out why that tab is preloading, then it would run smooth every time. But that's Selenium Grid in a nutshell. I just wanted to share that with the team. If you ever run across it, that's how you deploy it and manage it. Remember, you may have to update your versions as we keep adding newer versions of Grid into the product.